getting back to the NFL. In this game, I mentioned it a moment ago, if you're looking to have a little fun and be a degenerate, one bet I like to make in this game, I like the Patriots to score a defensive touchdown. I think this is the kind of game in which the Patriots defense really hasn't been good the last few years. They have games against bad teams where they just rack up impressive stats. You saw it earlier this year against the Detroit Lions. You saw it against the Cleveland Browns. They'll play a team, they'll get a couple picks, they'll get a defensive score, they won't allow a lot of points, and then you look at the rankings and you go, man, this Patriots defense is really impressive. They're like top 5 or top 10, when really when they play against high-quality opponents, they're not to that level. But this is the kind of game in which playing Sam Ehlinger and this Colts offense, I could see the Patriots defense getting a pick six, getting a strip sack, returning it for a touchdown. So if you want to put a few shekels on a long shot bet, on a long shot prop bet, I do like the Patriots defense to score a touchdown. Appreciate all of you joining us on Twitter Space.
Versus the New Orleans Saints. And that was a clip from yesterday's show that we do every Sunday morning where we preview the slate of games.
Football preview for
you don't always
NFL
get them
Week
right,
9
but yesterday we got
for
that one
the
right,
Baltimore Ravens versus the New Orleans Saints. And that was a clip from yesterday's show that we do every Sunday morning where we preview the slate of games. You don't always get them right, but yesterday we got that one right as we called the Sam Ehlinger interception. We said it would be returned for a touchdown, and we cashed on the defensive score as well. We hope that our picks tonight are just as good and just as lucrative for those out there. Appreciate all of you joining us on Twitter Spaces. Appreciate all of you joining us on YouTube as we stream from our Metaverse studio in Spatial but Fumble Sports, bringing sports talk into the Metaverse and hopefully bringing a lot of fans into the spotlight, allowing the every fan to be on-air talent and to have their voice heard. Looking forward to talking sports with all of you tonight and talking about specifically the NFL Week Sunday or NFL Week 9 Sunday and this game tonight. But before we even get into that, I am going to talk about the Colts right off the top. We mentioned it, Sam Ehlinger throwing that interception to start the game or to finish that game rather against the Patriots. The Colts didn't have one third down conversion, 0 for 13. Sam Ehlinger barely had over 100 passing yards, only the one interception, obviously no touchdowns, but just an embarrassing game. And today, shocking news coming out of Indianapolis as Frank Reich fired by Jim Irsay, owner of the Colts. This is surprising to me, one, because he signed an extension earlier this year, I think during summer. Frank Reich has brought them to the playoffs a couple times, and with quarterbacks that I don't think anyone believes much in, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. And all of this really does date back to when Andrew Luck decided to retire. The Colts have never found a quarterback since then. And for so many reasons, the guy who takes over is going to have a problem. Little did we know it would be Jeff Saturday going directly from ESPN and, doing shows with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith to now being head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. It sounds like a Disney movie. It doesn't even sound real. And that's what makes me question what Jim Irsay is thinking. For so many years, Jim Irsay has been the wild card of the NFL. In the news, he's got his own personal trouble. We won't talk about that. But his management of the Colts has been a disaster. Given that organization has been blessed with Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, the fact that the Colts only got one Super Bowl championship out of it, you have to wonder what's behind that. And I'm always someone who I look to leadership, I look to ownership. That tells me a lot about an organization. The move today is a symptom of a larger disease. Jim Irsay and the way he manages this team, at times it makes no sense. I didn't see Frank Reich being the next head coach to be fired. I didn't understand it today. I really don't understand Jeff Saturday being hired. So we're going to talk even more about it throughout the night. Just one of many topics around the NFL that's interesting. We also have Josh Allen's elbow, the New York Jets all of a sudden being playoff contenders. Yes, playoff. And so many other things going around the NFL. I want to welcome in Blees, who's going to be helping run the show tonight, as well as co-hosting. Blees, how you doing tonight?
What is good? And yes, good call on that. Belichick getting a touchdown and like name a scarier duo than Belichick and Judon. Like that is a scary combination, and they're right on the fringe of the wild card. I definitely see them getting in the wild card. I do not want to see Judon in the playoffs, coached by a Bill Belichick defense. That is just one of the scariest combos I think in the NFL. And as that defense develops, you know it's going to be well coached. They're really good at creating those turnovers. They are looking really solid. Like they're not just getting wins recently, like they're dominating these games, just flat out dominating these games. Yeah, they each went out against the Jets, but like before that, like they're really looking good and looking sharp on defense.
You're falling into the bait, man. I hate to say it, but this is what the Patriots defense of the last 3-4 years has a tendency to do. They get really impressive wins against offenses that aren't actually that good, like the Lions, like the Browns, like the Jets, like the Indianapolis Colts. And all of a sudden, just like I said in that clip from yesterday, you go, man, the Patriots are a pretty good team. That defense is what? Top 5, top 10? And in reality, they go up against the Buffalo Bills and they can't compete. I know what you're saying about Judon statistically. I feel like he's someone who gets 2-3 sacks against opponents who are just weaker. And you're right. Maybe down the stretch, the Patriots will play a few more of those games. Maybe in a first round game, they face a weaker opponent. But I actually think Judon's numbers, I really like him as a player. I think they're a reflection of regular season opportunity. I don't think that this Patriots defense is going anywhere, and I don't think the Patriots are actually going to get out of the cellar in the AFC East. I think they're going to be in the basement for the remainder of the year. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I would love to see it competitive and Bill Belichick sneak into the playoffs. But right now, the AFC East is just loaded, and I don't see where in their schedule they're going to get some easy wins to rack up. So Judon had a monster game, and I know someone who bet on Judon yesterday, Lope joining us tonight. I appreciate you joining the conversation, Lope. Lope, did you cash on that ticket for Judon over half a sack yesterday?
Yeah, I did, and you guys actually suggested he would have multiple sacks, and he had what, 3? So, but I'm wanted to lean more into, did Bill Belichick get Frank Reich fired with how pathetic their offense looked, or was it more that the Colts had already given up on Reich's voice, and that's why the Patriots defense looked so good?
I love the comment, Lope, especially because you go back. These two have a little bit of history on 2 different levels. Frank Reich was the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills that played the New York Giants in the Super Bowl and lost. Obviously, Bill Belichick was the defensive coordinator of that time. This dates back a couple decades. But then fast forward to more recent times when the Eagles and Patriots played the Super Bowl, obviously with Nick Foles at quarterback, Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator and put a spanking on the Bill Belichick defense. And now, a few years later, after Josh McDaniels doesn't take the job, stays in New England, Frank Reich leaves Philadelphia, goes to Indianapolis, becomes the head coach of the Colts, and then his time at the Colts ends when Bill Belichick puts a whooping on him and his defense shuts down a Colts offense. Lope, I would almost call it a conspiracy theory, but there's no conspiracy there. It's just a bunch of facts and a bunch of loose ends that tie up. So, to that point, a great take by you, Lope. I also want to bring up Matthew. Matthew, thank you for joining us. And a big shout out to Matthew, who ran the New York Marathon yesterday. Congratulations, Matthew. How the legs feeling?
Legs feel good. It was pretty sad that I couldn't place too many bets in the early window, given that I didn't want to be too distracted. But thank you for the support. I love you guys. It's been a fun little treat every week to join in on.
Here's my question, Matthew. What did you listen to during your 26.2 miles?
Yeah, so it was a mix of 3 things. I listened to the same Alesso set twice. If anyone is a dance EDM music type fan, then I listened to my 2 favorite chapters of David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. And then throughout the race, I just took my headphones off where there's big crowds and listened to the people. If anyone's looking to run a marathon, it was one of the coolest experiences of my life, and I definitely suggest giving it a try.
Well, we certainly applaud you, Matthew, but to how Mike is reacting in Twitter Spaces, I'm going to make it a hard pass. I'll spend my time looking at sports bets and fantasy plays and everything that you need to know to be successful on an NFL game day. That said, Mike, I hope you had a good weekend. Mike, thank you for joining us. What are you looking forward to in tonight's game between the Saints and the Ravens?
To be honest, I just want to see if the Saints can follow up a big win last week and at least compete, right? I mean, I don't think we're going to sit here and expect them to win this game, but I'll be interested. Like, I feel like their roster is too good not to be competing regularly. And I understand the quarterback issues, you know, that can have a lot to do with the way a team functions, but I believe in their new head coach, and they have a really good roster composition. So I'm really curious as to see if they can put together back-to-back weeks here.
Over the next, 50 minutes to an hour, we're going to go through the game tonight. We're going to talk about some player props that you should maybe look at. Obviously, talk about game picks for this one. But before we do, I do want to bring up some of our success from yesterday, because what is betting without looking at some of your receipts and pulling a few out of the trash and hanging a few on the mantle. We got our two best bets yesterday, which improves our best record over the season to 13-4. I know Mike's going to give me a hard time. We like buying our 1.5, which makes it a little bit more secure, but that's why we do it, because we want to have tickets that cash, and we want to make sure we avoid them in the trash. We got two best bets. We were sweating it on the over-under between the Raiders and the Jaguars. We got it at 49.5. Looked like a lot of points in that first half, and fortunately, the Raiders collapsed right on time. So thank you, Josh McDaniels, Derek Carr, and the rest of the Raiders for your contribution to my bank account. And Minnesota Vikings, I was sweating that one too. I had Minnesota -1.5, had that cover, and little did you know, Kirk Cousins, I know you're wearing all that ice and you think you're the man flying around, looking white boy fly. But that said, Harrison Smith, you are the white boy hero of the Minnesota Vikings this week, because that interception was a game changer. Taylor Heineke was about to pull off another upset win. Keep an eye on Taylor Heineke. That guy is scrappy. I'm forgetting, like Minshew. There's a few of these guys in the league who, like, they're leprechauns. They win, every 4 of the 5 games they play. Somehow they're not a starter given whatever circumstance. They're not a first-round pick or whatever. But we were sweating it yesterday, cashed on those tickets, going through a few of the bets that we didn't get yesterday because we had to call out where we missed. I did not see the Jets covering 10 points. I thought, maybe they hang it within 13, but Buffalo disappointed. We'll talk a bit later tonight. What's going on with Josh Allen's elbow? Is that a reason for fantasy owners to be concerned? Is that a reason for Buffalo Bills fans to be concerned? Another one that we missed yesterday, I had Miami and Chicago on the under. I think I missed that in the first half. Ton of points in that game. What an exciting performance by Justin Fields. He's showing a lot of the promise that a lot of people had for him when he was back at Ohio State. That said, when Tua Tagovailoa plays a full football game, the Miami Dolphins might be the best team in the AFC, especially now that we've seen what we have from the Buffalo Bills. Want to open it up to the floor. Raise your hand. What's a game or a bet or a fantasy play that got to you yesterday? What's something that didn't go your way? What's something that did go your way? Did you have Joe Mixon? Are there any Joe Mixon owners out there? Because if you had the cat, you were winning big. Mike, what happened for you on your tickets yesterday?
Well, I'll go to fantasy, right? Because I'm heavy into fantasy as well. And yesterday I was so busy. I ended up working all Sunday, so I was a little bit disconnected from the sports betting side of this. But in fantasy, I did in one of my leagues. I did get to go up against a guy who rostered Joe Mixon and Justin Fields, so that was really awesome and fun. And I think we know how that one ended for me. So, that's kind of I did, to be fair, like I used to be one of these people that would do like 15 leagues and just be fully degenerate. And it was actually a way for me to supplement my income too, because I was doing it at a high level. But I'm just so like I'm too busy now and I'm too burnt out. So I only have 4. Like I've whittled it down over the years to 4 leagues now. But I won. I won the other 3, which is good. But
by the way,
yeah,
I love that. I love
hit,
that. I'm only in 4 leagues now, as in like I'm only smoking a pack a day. Like I've really cut it down from my Mad Men level of like 6 packs a day. So like, good on me, because now I'm using nicotine chew to keep the addiction down.
Well, you have to understand. Back when I've been doing fantasy for the better part of 20 years, right? So, and I was so heavy into it, and I was cashing at such a high rate that I ended up having people like invest in me in leagues. So I was having people back leagues where I would take a percentage, like a cut of the winnings, right? Just kind of minimize my risk and give people a passive way to collect. But I had to get away from that. It was just too time consuming, and so I've cut it down to what I feel like is very manageable for a degenerate like myself now. But it's been an up and down year, but it's been.
I feel like in fantasy, it's been very similar to the NFL at large. There's just a lot of parity. There is not a lot of dominant teams. Right. I'm not seeing in any of the fantasy leagues that I'm in, or any of the leagues that people share with me when they ask for advice throughout the week. They're not showing me teams that are undefeated or have 1 loss. There are a lot of 3-loss teams that are in first place, and a lot of 5-loss teams that could easily make a run in the playoffs. This is a very strange year for fantasy. One thing that did stick out to me when thinking about fantasy football and how I want to draft in the future, given what I've seen this year, Jonathan Taylor last year had an amazing year. Anyone who thought he was going to repeat that is crazy, because simply the way the NFL works, between free agency, between coaches learning and defensive coordinators changing their schemes, between the discipline of a player trying to earn their spot, earn their reputation, earn the spotlight, and one that's been anointed as the next great running back, there is no reason to take the number 1 running back this year and draft them next year. I'm going to stash that away. I'm going to remind everyone come June and July, when people are thinking about fantasy football drafts. Getting back into our conversation tonight, Adam, you get your hand up. What's up, Adam?
Yeah, real quick, my 2 best plays for the weekend, 1 good, 1 bad. New England -5, easy winner. Just, again, going against Sam Ehlinger at quarterback, so that was easy winner there. But the one that was a heartbreak for me was, not often do you lose your bet twice in 30 seconds, but I had -6.5 Bills first half line, and being 14-3, Jets get the ball with 6 minutes to go in the second quarter, convert 2 third downs and a 4th down, score a touchdown with 30 seconds left in the quarter. So loser, 14-10, but Buffalo decides 3 timeouts, get in field goal range, and they miss a field goal. So, yeah.
That missed field goal, that they got you, they kicked both balls on you right there, because that's brutal.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Brutal.
That's why we're here for you, and we're going to have spaces on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so that anytime you need either advice or you need to vent, But Fumble Sports is going to be here for you, because that's a brutal loss, and we all experienced it yesterday. Obviously, I'm sweating that game with the Vikings. I'm sweating that game. I sweated the Tampa Bay game. Like I have a 9-game parlay that converts $10 into 419, and I'm right now waiting on the Ravens. I had the Bucks. The final 3 teams of it after that 1 p.m. window were the Bucks, the Chiefs, and now the Ravens tonight, all on the money line. So Tom Brady coming through, check. Patrick Mahomes coming through, check. And now we wait on Lamar Jackson and hope that he can convert $10 into 419, which will just go into player prop bets for NFL Week 10, because that's what we do. We just fold it over and we just keep chasing the dream. That's what we do at Butt Fumble Sports, because there is no winning, there is no losing. There's just the next game. Speaking of which, we want to talk a little bit. Yeah, Loeb, thanks for the cheers. Speaking of which, I want to get to tonight's game between the Baltimore Ravens and the New Orleans Saints. This is a game in which I saw it earlier in the week at -3. It has shifted its odds down now with a few injuries. It is -2 where I'm seeing it, which is Bovada. I know a number of other great books out there, so use the one that you feel most comfortable with. I'm certainly not advocating for Bovada until they sponsor the space. But that said, I use Bovada and have for years. I'm seeing them at -2, over under set at 46 points. So that's moved a little bit as well. Obviously, it makes sense that the spread has moved down a little bit, given that Mark Andrews is going to be out, given that Rashad Bateman is officially done for the year, and the over moving down as well makes sense. Give obvious reasons why. I do want to give some gambling trends before we go around the Twitter space and analyze this game for everybody. The Ravens are 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 Monday night games. The road team is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Ravens and the Saints. The Saints are 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 Monday night games. The over is 4-1 in the Ravens' last 5 Monday night games, and the over is 4-1 in the Saints' last 5 games overall. Those last 2 trends kind of stand out to me as the line has moved down. The over under has moved down from 47.5 down to 46. And that trend suggests when these two teams play, there's a lot of offense. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that tonight. So part of me wants to put some money on the over, but I'm obviously riding the Ravens on the money line. You heard that from my parlay a moment ago and trying to cash on that ticket. But I do like the Ravens to cover. I think 2 points, it could be tight because I could absolutely seeing that being the difference. But I like it right now that it's underneath a field goal. I think Justin Tucker makes a difference, always having the security of that great kicker, especially in a dome. That gives me even more reason to like Baltimore. But I feel like a 2-point cover is very doable tonight. I like the Ravens defense especially. I think Roquan Smith jumps and slots right in very well. Mike, given the line movement, what are your thoughts on this game?
So it opened at 3.5, and you've got 1.5 to 2, depending on where you're looking. My question that I don't know is when was the Rashad Bateman injury diagnosis announced?
It was announced midweek, so we knew he was going to be out by Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so and Mark Andrews is obviously that's a big target for Lamar. It's moved 2 points. As far as the money, with no injuries at all, it would kind of raise my eyebrows a little bit. It would tell me that Vegas is trying to bait people into putting some money in Baltimore's direction, which is kind of interesting. But this is the way I view it. Do I think that Bateman and Mark Andrews are worth 2 points in this game as far as the movement? Maybe they're obviously his main targets, but we also have to understand that how this offense operates, right? It runs through Lamar and his legs and the running backs and his ability to create just in general. They have a very serviceable backup tight end. So I don't see the drop off being huge, right? That's not to discount Mark Andrews, but I like right here. I like the value with Baltimore, and that might seem obvious just to anybody looking, but just based off of line movement, injuries, and these two teams from kind of a mixture of data and just my general understanding of how the Ravens offense operates, I see a very clear spot for value, especially if you wanted to go the safe route, the butt fumble route. If you're getting it at 1.5, you buy a 1.5. You got to pick them. I mean, I think that's a really juicy bet to take there. That's just kind of how I see that. As far as the total, open at 48.5, down to 46. And that reflects the money. You have 85% of the money on the under right now. So that's pretty straightforward right there. I think 46 is a pretty solid number to kind of work off of. And you've got to kind of, do some research and kind of feel that out as far as the direction you want to go with it. I don't like that. I'd be personally staying away from that number. That's just me. I will say, like, if as far as the spread, I would be looking at like Butt Fumble said, I would be fine taking them at 2 or 1.5. If you really wanted to play it safe, buy a half a point, buy a 1.5 or whatever. And I like I like the Ravens there. So
one thing that Mike just brought up that I definitely want to make note of is Isaiah Likely. He is going to be playing in place of Mark Andrews. I mentioned him earlier in the week as a waiver wire play. I think he could hit his player prop overs. I like him on receptions. I like him on total yards. I could see him being targeted in the red zone in the same way that you're seeing Mark Andrews used in that offense. Greg Roman's is gonna keep his offense the same. Mark Andrews is the piece that comes out. Isaiah Likely is the piece that's slotted in. I think that benefits Isaiah Likely. I think Lamar Jackson is going to naturally look to the tight end position on the field, especially with Rashad Bateman out. So one of the bets that I've put in for player props is just that, looking at Isaiah Likely. We can go to the live odds. I'm willing to jump on to Bovada for just a second. Blease, while I'm doing that, why don't you bring up your hand? What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to point up to the top your YouTube short that you did on Likely, and just to point to that as a great resource for checking up, because every week you're putting out starts, sits, and flexes for the week, and just you've hit on a lot of great players, and I think this is a great play here, especially in daily.
And I just want to kind of to tail on top of this, like whether or not, I mean, I know who Isaiah Likely is. I've since preseason. I think, Butt Fumble does. Maybe some of you guys do as well. But I think even if you don't, like, just to give you some perspective, I think there's no reason not to view him as the number one option tonight with Rashad Bateman out and Andrews. Like Butt Fumble said, Lamar, he loves his tight ends, right? He loves his tight ends. He's going to get the ball to Likely tonight. So I love the player props. I kind of don't even give a fuck what they are. Like, I think that's a really safe place to put your money, and I would view him as a number one option tonight.
Right now, I'm seeing on Bovada total receptions for Isaiah Likely 4.5, where the over is at plus 125. So the fact that I'm getting plus money on that bet, I know 5 would that's a lot to a backup tight end, but the fact that he's actually played over the last few weeks, he has more familiarity with the offense. He can, again, he slots right in. I don't actually think it changes that much about how they're operating as an offense. As for total receiving yards, that's going off at 40.5 yards. The over there is minus 135. So interesting. People think he's going to be targeted under 5 times, but they think he's going to get over 40 yards, which just tells me people think he's going to be a red zone target. I wonder what I need to look at what his anytime touchdowns are. But Lope, are there any player prop bets for this game that you're looking at?
Well, yeah, with the Ravens depleted, I was also going to look at Devin Duvernay.
Shout out Lope. Lope, you got any prop bets for us?
I can hear him.
I was looking at Devin Duvernay for one. With
all right, we're gonna have to get back to Lope, see if he can jump in.
Butt Fumble.
He's talking right now. You just can't hear him. Lope, leave the space and come back in.
Mike, to the lineman you were talking about earlier, do you think the over is a good play? I know the Ravens defense has been one of the worst in the NFL, but the question is, do the Saints offense put up enough points? And given the loss of Mark Andrews, given where the flexibility is now moving, if I buy that down to say 45.5, or if it's going off at 46, I can get that at 44.5. Do you think that's a good play for over 44.5?
Yeah, I mean, I think just you're going to be paying the juice for it, and I know that's something you're okay with. I think again, I don't like this over under. I have a feeling it's either going to go way under or way over, and I can't decide what it's going to be.
Hey, Blease, you got me? Go ahead.
I think you're rugging, man. You can't hear any of us?
Butt Fumble, can you hear me?
I think Butt Fumble's rugging.
Yeah.
I think you might need to restart the space.
Shit.
Here, I'll message him.
I think Twitter Spaces. I've seen a couple rug today. Well, shit.
Yeah, I just messaged him. We'll see what he does. I told him to restart it.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm rugging out, I think.
Can you
Please,
hear
can
us
you hear
now?
me?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, he needs to
I think
needs to restart it.
it's him.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
him.
please, can you hear me?
Give him a thumbs down. Or thumbs up. Give him a thumbs up.
Hey, sorry about that. I think I was rugging. Blease, can you hear me?
You got us?
Yeah, I'm rugging hard, so I don't know how to get in the space without yeah.
Stay with us. We are restarting. What's good? Appreciate you tuning in. We're just having technical difficulties here with there we go.
Matthew, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me now. Mike, what's good? There we go, and we're back. And apparently Elon Musk didn't get the check I sent to be verified and to be able to use Twitter Spaces. So forgive me, everybody, for being the rug one on the account.
Yeah, Twitter Spaces have been funky lately, so it's not just a you thing for sure.
That said, I hope there was some great conversation going on about tonight's football game. A lot of reasons to be excited. I will kind of step back into where we were a moment ago and just say, if you want to hear more gambling trends, if you want to talk sports throughout the week, Butt Fumble Sports is here for you. We love engaging with you, and we believe that every sports fan has the talent, ability to be on-air talent. So any way you want to interact with us, we put out fantasy content, gambling content, at Sports Fumble on Twitter, at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. Please subscribe. And to those who are in the space tonight, please tweet it out, as we're going to talk a little bit more over the next half hour about this game and how to bet it. I know we were talking about Isaiah Likely earlier in this game. One bet that I am staying away from is all Lamar Jackson player props. I'm not crazy about it. I just don't know what he's going to be. The Saints defense isn't nearly as bad as the Ravens defense is. So I don't know what it's going to be in terms of rushing yards or passing yards. There's just a lot of reasons for me to have doubts about that. So for that reason alone, I'm going to avoid Lamar Jackson player props. One player prop that I'm hitting very hard, though, Andy Dalton, anytime interception, or I should say over half an interception. I love that player prop. It's going off at minus 130 where I saw it, but that's one I feel very confident about. Andy Dalton has been consistent in the number of interceptions that he's thrown this year. Additionally, the Ravens actually have a pretty opportunistic secondary. For those reasons, I like that player prop bet. It's definitely one that I'm going to put down some money on. I don't know if I missed it earlier, but Mike, feel free to catch me back up. Did I miss any player props from a moment ago?
No. You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. No, I mean, I just the only player props I'd be really like interested in that, just off the top of my head, as you know, I'm not a huge prop guy, so take that for what it is. But I view Likely as a number one target tonight. They're going to get him the ball. And honestly, I think that on a different team, Likely is a player that would potentially be a starting tight end. With Andrews, he's an all-pro tight end. They're going to get him the ball, as they should. They pay him the money to do that, but he's not here. I think this is going to be potential kind of welcome to the show game for Likely. I wouldn't be surprised if they got him involved early. I wouldn't be surprised if you see 2 or 3 catches on the first drive. But yeah.
For the same reasons, I'm avoiding Lamar Jackson's player props. I really don't know what I'm going to get. I'm also avoiding Alvin Kamara. And the reason for that is less about Alvin Kamara and has more to do with Roquan Smith. The addition of that middle linebacker into the Ravens defense, I think it could substantially change who they are on pass and run plays. So for a number of reasons, I'm staying away from the Alvin Kamara player prop bets. I could see him getting an anytime touchdown. That's one I would consider. But a Saints bet that I am going to make is I love Taysom Hill in a number of player props. I like his over rushing yards, and I like him on an anytime touchdown. He seems to get a lot of play around the red zone. If I can get an anytime touchdown out of him, certainly worth it to me. Lope, I know you just joined us. What are some bets or player prop bets that you like for this game?
I'm with you on the Taysom Hill. He scored a touchdown in each of his last 4 Monday night appearances at the Superdome. And then I also like Devin Duvernay over yards, 43.5. If Lamar Jackson's going to go deep, that's going to be about his only option. So maybe not a lot of catches, but I think he gets maybe one big one or so, 1 or 2 big ones, and that'll clear the 43.5.
Lope, do you have any desire to put any money on J.K. Dobbins tonight, given that Gus Edwards doubtful to play in this one? Does it make you lean towards putting some money on J.K. Dobbins?
I'm a little weary just because he's been hamstringed with injuries so often. But with the option on Lamar Jackson, it's possible, but I don't know that that's where I would lay my money at in this. I think the Ravens money line or something would be more suited towards the cash out tonight.
Adam, what about you? What's your take on this game?
So just first thing on the over, it's interesting that it came down 2 points. 4 of the last 5 games for New Orleans have gone over the total. So I'm guessing between Baltimore's offensive injuries and maybe what the public saw with New Orleans' last game shutting out Oakland or Las Vegas, maybe that it shades to the under there. But I'm kind of on your side. I would give a slight lean to the over on that one if I had to pick. 2 player props that I have are 2 guys you just mentioned you're staying away from. I like over receiving yards for Kamara tonight at 39.5. In 3 of the last 4 games, he's gone over that total. Last 2 games, 56 yards receiving. In the last game, 96. I think he's become Dalton's safety net, check down guy, and he's so good with the ball in his hands in the open field. So I like over 39.5 for Kamara, and then I like Lamar Jackson tonight over long rush of 17.5 yards. 6 of the last 8 games, he's gone over this number, and with the offensive injuries tonight, New Orleans may be trying to play him and defend against him, but I think he can break one to go over 18. So kind of playing the odds in that one. 6 of the last 8 games, he's going over that number. So those are 2 of the props that I like.
I want to applaud Adam in those picks because I love where his head's at, which is don't just go towards, rushing total. Sometimes you have to find a bet that's a bit more on the nose. I love Alvin Kamara on that over receiving yards. I agree with you. I think Andy Dalton, being the professional quarterback that he is and knowing how to manage the game, he's going to check down to his running back frequently. He did that in the past in Cincinnati. He did it in Dallas when he had a few games there. You see the tendency that he has. And Alvin Kamara is an exceptional receiver, so you can trust his hands. If he's going to get the targets, he's going to get the yards. So I love that player prop or play for you. Additionally, I actually like Lamar Jackson on that over 1 rushing total. I think you said 17.5. I like that because I can see him getting a 20-yard run purely because, especially depending on how this game plays out, you have those kinds of garbage moment opportunities where it's the end of a half, the end of a game, and he's just trying to make a play. He's going to make a big chunk run. It's not to say he's going to get 60 total rushing yards for the game. For a number of reasons, he loses yards at times. So, but for the single run, getting 20 yards, or to that point, getting 17 and a half, I feel pretty good about that as well. I think that's a great play. I'd be curious to know what the long run for Taysom Hill would be. You can hear I'm kind of leaning towards him. I could see Dennis Allen and the Saints using him frequently tonight. I know you're right now on list. I'm going to bring up if you can. Matthew, do you have any player props for this game? If so, feel free to shout out and let us know. Appreciate everyone joining the Twitter space. Appreciate everyone streaming us on YouTube and checking us out in Spatial. Butt Fumble Sports, bringing sports talk into the metaverse. Matthew, now that you've jumped on as a speaker, are there any player props that you like for tonight's game?
I like under on Lamar Jackson's passing yards, but what I like the most in this game is, and a little away from the props, so I apologize, but I think this is a must-win game for the Saints. They've played well recently. They've put up points. I feel like I'm fading both you and Mike, which is never good, but I like the over, and I like the Saints to win in a close game. So that's kind of where my head's at with this one.
Well, like just to tail off that, like I said, there is something to be said about the line movement. Again, I don't know, just based off the fact that the Baltimore offense goes as Lamar Jackson goes. Like, he is the piece to this that makes the engine run. So I don't necessarily, in my mind, think that those 2 points that it's come back necessarily fully reflect the injuries. I think there is a little bit of movement that direction. I don't think it's a lot, but a little bit of movement that direction coming from Vegas, wanting a little bit more money on Baltimore. So I think there is something to be said to that as far as somebody who may like New Orleans in this game.
It's interesting, Matthew. The one thing I took away from kind of how you're splitting this game up is you have the Saints, but you also have the over. And to me, what's interesting about that is I feel like if the Saints win this game, it's because they're going to contain Lamar Jackson. They're going to limit Baltimore's offense. And so that would have me leaning towards the under, thinking they're going to control time of possession. They're going to frustrate Lamar Jackson. He's not going to be able to get points. Because especially, I went back to this earlier, one of the reasons I like the over and I like Baltimore is Justin Tucker. Whenever the Ravens are within scoring distance, they're going to put points on the board. And that just may, except when they're being stupid and using analytics too frequently. But for the most part, they have an automatic 3 points every time they get to about midfield or just beyond it. So I feel like if the Saints are going to win this game, it's going to be about the underplay. Any reason why you kind of are splitting the ticket in that way and kind of going one direction towards the Saints, but also taking the under? Maybe Matthew missed me on that one. I was just curious what your take was, Matt. But feel free to raise your hand or get back in a moment. Just to get back to everybody, thank you for joining us. Check out our content on Twitter at Sports Fumble. Check out our content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Butt Fumble Sports. Appreciate all the followers, all the subscribers, building a community where we intentionally, we love talking sports. That's where our focus is, but we really want to democratize sports media, turn every fan into on-air talent. It's one of the reasons I love Twitter Space, and I hope Elon Musk doesn't screw it up too much, because I love hearing your guys' takes. You guys are giving me ideas and thinking about how to approach this game tonight. I do want to talk a little bit more about the week to come. I know we're going to do that tomorrow night, but I'm already a little bit excited because there are some games in which I could just see them working out in favor, getting some early lines. So just one quick sec, I am going to run through Atlanta Falcons at Carolina Panthers. Right now, the Falcons are a 3-point favorite on the road on a Thursday night. really interesting to think about how Thursday night games used to be an automatic win for the home team. Now we don't think of them that way. Maybe there's something behind that. The Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they play Sunday morning in Germany, the first NFL game in Germany. And the Seahawks, that's a long way to travel from the Pacific Northwest all the way to Germany. I'm curious as to know when they're going to make their way to Germany and prepare for that game. The Bucks are 2.5-point favorites in that game. Amazing. You would think that the Seahawks, how they've played, how Geno Smith has been leading the Seahawks as of late, how their defense is playing, that they would be favored. But no, it's Tom Brady in Germany, favored by 2.5 points. A couple teams coming back from bye weeks. The Browns at Miami, they're 4.5-point underdogs. The Broncos go and play the Titans. The Titans with that brutal loss last night on Sunday Night Football. The Titans are 3-point favorites against Russell Wilson and the Broncos, who come off a bye week. The Texans, coming off a bye week, play the New York Giants, another team coming off a bye. Sorry, the Texans played this week. They played Thursday night. I forget about that now. That feels so long ago. But the Texans, coming off that half bye week, play a team on a full bye week, the New York Giants. Giants 6.5-point favorites in that game. All of a sudden, Vegas becoming big believers in them. That might be a game you want to take the Texans to cover. I'm already looking at an early line there. The Jaguars, 9.5-point underdogs against the Chiefs. That is another one in which you got to like the Jaguars to cover. If you're getting, at this point, we've seen too many of these. If you're getting 10 points, take the underdog. We have just seen in this NFL, there are not that many blowout wins in games where the line was set that way. I mean, rarely do we see that as the case. We last week, all 3 games in which there was a double-digit spread, the underdog covered, and in one of them, the underdog won with the Jets against the Bills. So lots of reasons to see a line like 9.5 points. And in classic butt fumble sports style, I'm going to buy the 1.5, and I'm going to get Jacksonville at plus 11. I'll take that all day. I don't care that it's going up against Patrick Mahomes. Lope bringing in the sound effects as if we need. Lope is like the technician in a radio station, hitting the buzzers and getting us. Soon we're going to go to the traffic report. So appreciate that, Lope. Continuing to go through some of these games in the upcoming week, the Dallas Cowboys go to Green Bay and play the Green Bay Packers. I saw a great stat that I wanted to bring up for tonight's space. So bear with, and of course I have a ton of messages all of a sudden, but bear with me because there was a great, I'd love to find it here. Oh, here it is. The Packers at plus 4.5 versus the Cowboys in week 10 is the first time that Aaron Rodgers has been a home dog of more than 3 points. Rodgers as a home underdog is 4-2-1 straight up and 5-1-1 against the spread. So a really interesting note and reason to believe that the Packers may be a nice cover play next week. And finally, the Sunday night football game of the week should be an absolute dandy. The Los Angeles Chargers playing the San Francisco 49ers in San Fran or wherever it is they play in California. At this point, 7-point favorites. The 49ers are 7-point favorites in that game against the Chargers team that just won on the road. So as you can hear, a lot to break down. We're going to cover that tomorrow night. Not the reason of tonight's space, but I did want to tease it since we will be covering that. 7 p.m. tomorrow night, we'll be going through the entire NFL Week 10. I can't believe it's already Week 10. Unbelievable to think how fast this NFL season is going by. We appreciate all the support that we've gotten from you guys. Definitely this space just continues to grow. The support continues to grow. That said, I want to go back to some fantasy from this past week. Again, I know we talked about Joe Mixon, but did anyone have a great fantasy win? Great fantasy performance in this week? Lope, was there someone who stood out for you this week in fantasy?
Obviously, Joe Mixon had a big day, but Justin Fields as well. He just for him to use his legs and his arms, the Dolphins defense needs a lot of help. It's still very young, but you gotta like what you've seen with Justin Fields, especially with low help.
Lope, who's your starting quarterback?
Well, I had Trey Lance, and that didn't pay out. So,
Oh, wow. Lope went the Trey Lance route. Wow.
I,
Sad for Lope.
I like the 49ers, and I think he has potential, but obviously he just can't stay healthy.
So that brings up an interesting point for tonight's conversation, which is the quarterbacks from last year's draft class, not 2022, but 2021. We've obviously seen Trevor Lawrence have his highs and lows. Actually, I can't think of that many highs, if I'm being honest, but we've certainly seen a lot of lows in Jacksonville. We know he's talented from his time at Clemson, but he hasn't lived up to the number one overall pick kind of hype. Trey Lance, he's out for the year. Zach Wilson got a big win yesterday, though we're not talking about him. Funny enough, I feel like when the Jets win, we're not going to talk about Zach Wilson. We'll talk about the defense. We'll talk about the running game. We'll talk about the coaching. But when they lose, I feel like Zach Wilson's going to get brought up every time because when they lose, Zach Wilson is the problem. It speaks to just how Zach Wilson plays. He is either under control, dinking and dunking his way a few bullet passes to Garrett Wilson now and then. But when he's just chucking and doing his version of Brett Favre, the Jets are a sub 500 team. But if he plays disciplined, plays like a young Tom Brady and doesn't turn the ball over rather than an old Brett Favre, I think the Jets can actually go somewhere. But then you think of Justin Fields and Mac Jones. And the reason I bring them up is Mac Jones won yesterday. Justin Fields lost. But which quarterback do you actually feel better about right now? Mac Jones has regressed over the last year. Meanwhile, Justin Fields went from, I think a lot of people thought he wasn't going to make it, to all of a sudden people talking about like he's emerged and he's all of a sudden one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. I feel like that's only happened over the last 2 to 4 weeks. And it's amazing how the narrative has completely changed about that draft class. It was Mac Jones. It was, let's say, Trevor Lawrence. And now all of a sudden, it's Justin Fields who could end up being the best in that class. Now, I like Justin Fields at Ohio State, and I liked him. I thought it was smart of the Bears to trade up to get him. I just didn't see the bandwagon being overloaded so quickly. Is there anyone in this group who actually believes that Justin Fields is the best quarterback from that draft class?
I think it's still too early to tell, but the one thing you can't deny right now is that he is putting that team on his back the best he can. I don't, the way they're running him, I don't know how sustainable that is. But it's impressive to see what he's doing because as far as I'm concerned, the Bears have probably one of the least talented rosters in the NFL. And they're just selling their players at this point and almost trying to lose. And Fields is doing his best to keep him in it, and they're being competitive. So, I think it's still too early to tell who the best is. But I mean, if you look at like him versus Trevor Lawrence is what I would look at, right? Just in the sense that they both play for teams that I think we all can, agree on are pretty lackluster, but to see the way Justin Fields is kind of fighting with what he's got and really showing up, I think is impressive. But yeah, I mean, long term, I think, you look at what the Eagles and the Dolphins have done for Tua and Jalen Hurts, right? Snagging A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith up there, and then Tyreek Hill, and turning Jalen Waddle into a number 2 wide receiver is silly in that offense. So it's like they've given them the tools to succeed, and you're kind of seeing it play out. So it'll be interesting going forward. And for my money, I still think that if you give Trevor Lawrence big time players like that, I still think he's the best in this class, but it's too early to tell for me.
Two notes I want to bring up around Justin Fields. One, Marvin Harrison Jr. should 100% be a target by the Bears draft, scouting team, because he's the number 1 wide receiver right now in college football. He's going to come out. He's going to be drafted in the first round. You pair him with Justin Fields over the next decade. I think that is a magical duo, both coming out of Ohio State. That said, there's another thing at play. It's a bit more macro, but I'll still get into it. The Bears need a new stadium. And Justin Fields, in the last 3 weeks, has all of a sudden become, quote unquote, a franchise quarterback. That changes the entire conversation around Soldier Field and what happens with the Bears. Because the Bears, right, at the beginning of the year and up until Justin Fields, apparently became amazing, they're a franchise that a lot of people were kind of wondering what was going to happen to them. They're not going to go anywhere, but to just that point, they're not going to go anywhere. Maybe Justin Fields is the rocket booster that can all of a sudden get them through this layer of atmosphere that has contained this franchise for decades. People mock the Ford family and the Detroit Lions. The Bears have had only one Super Bowl more than the Detroit Lions. Just one. So while we laugh at Detroit, the Bears haven't been that much better. And I know there's a lot of hope being put on Justin Fields, but I would hope everyone just holds on a little bit longer. I think he's talented. I like that he's not a pure runner. I like that his arm is there. So it's not an RG3 situation. I know RG3 had an amazing arm too, but it's not that I don't think he risks his career as much as an RG3 in running the ball and taking hits. But I just pumped the brakes just a little bit. We thought this guy was going to be run out of town 5 weeks ago, and now he's the savior of Chicago. Something smells wrong to me, something I definitely look at. That said, I think that they have found something with him in this running game. I like him and Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. I like that trio of runners. I think it definitely puts a strain on defenses who have to cover all of them. They have different strengths. For all of those who have been joining us for this Twitter space, I do want to quickly get back to tonight's game and just remind people of some of our picks for tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Baltimore Ravens and the New Orleans Saints. The Butt Fumble Sports pick of the game is going to be the Ravens to cover. Right now, where I'm seeing it, it's -2 points. That's moved down over the course of the week. I still like them to cover -2, but I did buy it earlier in the week down from -3 to -1.5. I'd probably do the same here, buy half a point, get them at -1.5. If they're going to win, I feel like they'll win by 2 points. I feel good about that. Like I said earlier, also have them on a money line as part of a 9-game parlay, a $10 bet that pays out at $419. So I'm definitely rooting for the Ravens tonight. As for the over-under, I like that this has moved down over the course of the week. If I would put any money on it, I would take the over in this game, buy it down to 44.5 and take the over. And for player props, I like Isaiah Likely. If you can get him in some yardage, total receptions, and an anytime touchdown, I like Jason. I keep saying it, Jason Tatum. Nope, it's Taysom Hill. I like Taysom Hill on an anytime touchdown. And the number one player prop bet, the Butt Fumble Sports prop bet of the day, is Andy Dalton over half an interception. So let's go Ravens defense in that secondary. Just as a reminder, really quick, Mike, just remind the audience of your pick for tonight's game.
My pick tonight is going to be the Ravens. And that's more of a lean than like a confidence pick, but I'm gonna take the points there, and I'm gonna just believe that regardless of the injuries and what I think likely is capable of filling in for Mark Andrews. I'm gonna lean towards the Ravens, and again, I'm just gonna stay away from the over under altogether. That's just me personally, though.
Lope, what's your bet for this game, and what's your favorite player prop?
Duvernay over 43.5 is my favorite player prop. I do like the Ravens, but I think it might take some Lamar Jackson come from behind because we all know how loud the Superdome gets. They're going to have to go to a silent count. I'm sure Harbaugh will have them ready for it, but it's really hard to communicate and change plays. And so I think they'll be a little conservative and just feel it out in the first half and try to make Andy Dalton make one of those forces that may get the interception you're looking for.
Crowd noise analysis. That's what we're looking for, Lope. Love the take. Adam, what you got for us on this game real quick? What's your pick for the game, and what's your favorite player prop one more time?
So I'm going to stay off the line and the over in this game. And the two props that I mentioned was Kamara over receiving yards, 39.5. 3 of the last 4 games. He's gone over that total. Dalton uses him as a safety net. So I like the over 39.5 for Kamara. And then Lamar Jackson, longest rush over 17.5. He's gone over that number 6 of the last 8 games. So I'll play the trend with that one.
And there you have it, the picks for Monday Night Football. Appreciate everyone joining the space. Follow us on Twitter at Sports Fumble. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Butt Fumble Sports. Appreciate all of you guys joining us. We will be with you back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be talking about NFL Week 10, going through all the games, early betting lines, how to take advantage of it so you can cash in on another week of NFL football. Thank you all for joining us, and good luck